He's the head boss at the Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism for the state of Louisiana. He comes from all the way at the bottom of the Mississippi River in Plaquemines Parish. He gained national and statewide notoriety for the first time, rebuilding and saving lives after Hurricane Katrina and responding to the BP oil spill that ravaged our coast. Today on the Louisianist, Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser. Bonjour et bienvenue, hello and welcome back. We're on the Louisianist and we are honored today to be with the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Louisiana, Mr. Billy Nungesser. How's it going?
Glad to be with you. Doing great.
It's an honor. We're really happy to have you. And so to get started, we always like to kind of see behind the scenes and learn a little bit about the person, not just the politician or the leader. And so could you talk to us a little bit about your upbringing and growing up in Louisiana?
Yeah, my father had a shrimp factory. My dad would go to the docks and buy the shrimp, come back, cook them, peel them, sell them to the restaurants. Later, we got into the offshore catering business, much like a lot of the shrimpers did, where they used to bring groceries out to the oil rigs in the early days. And from that, I used to go offshore and live in these sleeping quarters that leaked and wasn't in the best of shape. And at 23, I came up with this crazy idea to build living quarters out of old shipping containers. And with a $7,000 loan from my mom, turned a shipping container into a business that, when I sold the company, had over 1,000 buildings in the Gulf, housing workers in the oil field. And sold my company, built a riding center for special needs children, and dug a lake and built my house overlooking the Mississippi River. And when Katrina approached, I had nowhere to bring those animals. Raised cattle, had a herd of elk, and decided to ride out the storm to protect those animals. Ended up rescuing a bunch of people that live with me by airboat, some off of roofs out of floating mobile homes, and didn't see a lot of response from the elected officials, and decided to run for parish president. And then after the BP oil spill, decided to run for lieutenant governor. I just didn't think enough people stood up for the community. So that's how I got here to this point. Born and raised in New Orleans and Algiers, and I've been here my whole life.
Awesome. And speaking of, so your dad also was involved in politics to some extent, and so I wanted to know, I've been reading the Louisiana Hayride. It's a dense book, so I haven't gotten through, but he features in a few different parts. And I was wondering, what did he teach you about politics and political leadership?
Well, my dad was head of the Republican Party when it wasn't too popular. They used to joke about him meeting in a phone booth. And my dad used to always support someone that won't embarrass you. You know you they won't embarrass you by doing the wrong thing. Their integrity, their honesty, and their ethics, even if they didn't have a chance to win, because if you don't support people like that, we'll never change things. And I'll never forget that. He supported Dave Treen many times before he won governor. And he was his chief of staff. And I tell you, it was, we didn't know till after my dad passed, or the kids didn't, or no one, that he donated his whole salary to Shriners Hospital up in Shreveport. The whole time he was serving Governor Treen, never took a salary. He told my mom, but didn't tell anybody else. But I learned about the ethics and honesty that we need more of in politics, because you see so much of the bad of politics, but the people that really care about making a difference is few and far between.
Right. And, speaking of that, the integrity and the desire to serve the community, I mean, all of us that experienced Katrina, I think that was a hallmark for us and, a tipping point, inflection point for our state, and especially the New Orleans region. And also that's kind of when, at least as far as I remember, when you started kind of really getting in the state and national spotlight, because there was so much neglect. And so can you talk to us about the Katrina experience and why were we so abandoned in that way?
Well, I think nobody was prepared for that type of storm. And I think the governor at the time got a lot of bad press, but we weren't prepared. We've been prepared better ever since then. But all eyes were on New Orleans. And I was in a community, that little finger that sticks out in the Gulf, Plaquemines Parish, south of New Orleans, and never saw a politician. Had it not been for the first responders, police officers, and volunteers, things would have been a lot worse immediately right after and months and years after. So after a year as a private citizen of being frustrated that we wasn't getting our fair share of attention or help, I was talked into running for parish president, and stood up for that community. And I see that around the state as lieutenant governor. Smaller communities that don't have the voting base don't get their fair share, and that's why when I ran, I made a commitment to represent all of Louisiana, no matter how big or small the community is. They still deserve a fair shake in whatever it is, whether it's tourism or infrastructure, and surely support during the times of a disaster.
Right. And what do you think, especially in terms of the post-Katrina rebuild, what did you see as kind of the real needs in Plaquemines Parish to keep it alive?
You know, I'm a big supporter of pumping river sediment and building land in our lifetime. They've got this $3 billion diversion plan that won't build any land. It's going to wipe out our dolphins. It's going to kill our seafood. And yet the people that are getting rich over it are pushing the $3 billion diversion. And I don't think Louisiana needs a 50-year coastal plan. We better rethink that to a 3 to 5 year plan if we're going to survive. In 50 years, I tell people we'll have the Grand Isle Fishing Rodeo in Baton Rouge. But we could put dredges out there 24/7 pumping that would lower our storm surge in our lifetime, lower insurance rates, or spend $3 billion on a diversion that will wipe out our seafood and not build any land. It's impossible for a diversion to build land above the waterline. So why are we doing it? But I think those kind of issues are critical, that we do what's best for the communities, not for the consultants getting rich off these projects. And for too long, we've done that in Louisiana.
Right. And then kind of in addition to the rebuilding the land, there's post-Katrina, there was a lot of focus on the levees and having a strong levee system. And so do you think we're where we need to be in terms of having a hurricane protection levee system?
Well, I think we've made great ground. I mean, we've made great progress. We've got federal levees now in Plaquemines Parish. We've got pumping capacities up, as in many parishes, a lot of infrastructure done. But you'll never build the levees or flood walls high enough. If we don't start pumping that sediment out the river and building land outside the levee systems to lower storm surge before it gets to the levees, we won't survive. And to build marsh is not doing anything, it washes away. We need to build substantial land, ridges and islands that were once there that are sustainable. And if we did that 24/7 and had the people along the coast best interest, we could lower storm surge every year and see it getting better, not worse. And anything short of that is not going to save our coast.
Right. And speaking of the coast, you just said it was the BP oil spill that inspired you to run for lieutenant governor. So can you talk to us about that thought process?
Yeah, we, as parish president, they were killing birds, hiding them in the marsh. They were not being truthful with America. And we should have all been working as a team to save the coast, save the wildlife, and keep the oil out the marsh. And unfortunately, there were people that were blocking us from trying to do the right thing just to keep me off TV and keep the dying birds off TV. And had we worked better as a team early on, we would have done a lot better at saving the wildlife, the oyster beds, because we told them that the yellow boom wasn't working. We needed ocean boom. Just everything we recommended was a fight to get it into the system. And so looking back, if we, and hopefully we never do, have another disaster like that, the people that come down here to assist you need to listen to the local people more. And they really had some ways for preventing a lot of the damage that took place.
Right. And so in that dynamic, often the industry, the oil industry and environmental protection are opposed, and they say we have one or the other. And so how do you view that? How can we have industry but also protect the environment?
Well, let me tell you, this, I believe the people that were put in charge, excuse me, Thad Allen at the time was put in charge by the president, was there to try to make things go away. Wasn't there to do the best job we could to clean up quickly. And if a lot of things we recommended would have saved BP money. And I don't think what happened during that spill represents the greater oil industry. I was in the oil industry, and these companies have put up millions of dollars for coastal restoration, for environmental projects, for wildlife projects. So I believe it can coexist, and I believe we got to work with the industry that feeds our economy. I mean, look, we're not going to go to batteries overnight or windmills overnight. So we better, they've done a great job at doing a lot of preventive maintenance, a lot of things to clean up the industry. And they don't want an oil spill, as nobody does. So I think when we have these disasters, it's easy to throw rocks at what had happened. We need to come together just like after a storm and work to get back to fixing things. And I think we need to do more of that with the oil industry and all the industries.
Right, we need all of the above. And so speaking of another big driver of Louisiana's economy, of course, is tourism, which is one of your most important responsibilities as Lieutenant Governor. And so can you talk to us about looking back at your terms as Lieutenant Governor and what you're most proud of? What have you accomplished in the role?
Yeah, you know, when I took office, I listened to the people. What do we need to do? And promoting every corner of the state, promoting Mardi Gras all over Louisiana, not just New Orleans. Family-friendly, safe, affordable Mardi Gras in Mammals, Lafayette, Morgan City, Homer. And we got people come from all over the world that go to Mardi Gras and all over Louisiana. And I'm most proud of, prior to COVID, we had 5 record-breaking years. And everyone kept saying, you can't break another record, you're gonna have a down year. And yet we kept setting records. In 2019, over 53 million people visited Louisiana. They left behind $1.9 billion in taxes. That's over $1,100 per Louisiana family we didn't have to pay. 4th biggest industry in the state, employing 250,000 families that live off this industry. Huge industry in Louisiana, and we're just getting started. The sky's the limit. We started creating sports tourism, not just the Super Bowls and Final Fours in New Orleans, but the Olympic trials and Dizzy Dean World Series in Ruston, setting all of these sports events all over the country, all over the state, with people from all over the country, building new hotels all up and down the interstates all over Louisiana. So we looked at this as a whole state and tried to grow every region in tourism, and we've done that. This year, I think we'll probably set another record, but if not this year, surely next year. We're way ahead of where we thought we would be coming out of COVID. We've done a lot better than a lot of states, and we've done that by thinking outside the box with the Macy's Parade Float, the Rose Parade Float, things, and taking over train stations in London and feeding Tabasco ice cream, and really bringing the party there and getting people excited about coming here. But our best asset in Louisiana is our people. Our people treat strangers like family. You meet a friend for life and you keep coming back for more. So it's the people that I give the credit for those record-breaking tourism. You leave here with a warm and fuzzy feeling, and that's what I'm most proud of.
Definitely. It's funny because, I feel there's a real sense that Louisiana is on the map, both here but also internationally. I have a friend from college actually that went to the Louisiana stand in London and got the Tabasco ice cream, and I was like, I didn't even know they were doing that. So that's really
We
cool.
find that rather than running ads, when we bring Louisiana flavor, and I mean whether it be in the ice cream, Tabasco ice cream, or etouffee, or the gumbo, and we feed them, and we talk about all the great things in Louisiana, we get everyone excited about coming here. Australia, New Zealand, a trip I just went on, we brought all of our recipes, all of our hot sauces. We used their seafood, and we taught their chef how to make gumbo and etouffee. And we fed all the travel agents that night. And we said, look, how y'all like the gumbo? The chef did a pretty good job, and it was pretty good. But to get the real stuff, you got to come to Louisiana. So we were able to feed them and really get them excited about our flavor, both musicians, our culture, our history. And by bringing a team over there and seeing how warm and friendly the people of Louisiana are, it makes all the difference in the world.
Definitely. And so this would be your 3rd term as Lieutenant Governor. And I know some other people before were kind of hoping that you might run for governor. And so do you want to talk to us about that? Why did you decide not to run for governor and instead stay in your current role?
It weighed heavy on me to make that decision. So many people wanted me to run. The polls looked great. I couldn't raise the money needed to compete with the front runner. And unfortunately, I don't lie about my opponents. I hate negative campaigning, but it works. And I just felt like I didn't have the money or the organization in place. I can't promise anything but good government for a political donation. I'd rather somebody go online and give me $10. Those are the people I want to represent. And I turned down a lot of money for people that wanted me to be for things that weren't good for Louisiana. I just don't want to be governor if I can't look in the eye and say, we're going to work hard to fix everything. It would be frustrating me internally not to be able to do that. So, and I love what I do. And I felt an obligation to finish what we started, get back to those record-breaking years. Coming out of COVID, it's going to be so important that we do absolutely everything we can to get every community back where they were prior to COVID. Too many businesses, mom and pops, people working in this industry, rely on this industry, and we know during COVID, they used up all of their savings. So we've got to take the marketing to them. We've got to market every restaurant, shop, attraction, museum, all the great things to do all over this, all the fairs and festivals. We have over 400 fairs and festivals. If you can eat it, drink to it, shoot it, we name a festival after it. But those men and women and families work year-round at no cost to the state, money out their own pocket, put on those great festivals. We owe it to them to make sure we promote all of them, and they get back to where they were prior to COVID. Same thing with the Mardi Gras crews. They work year-round, putting together those floats, buy all those things to throw out of their own pocket. What a great tool in our toolbox to promote Louisiana. Many states wish they had that. So we ought to be thanking the Mardi Gras crews and the fairs and festivals for giving those events to us to promote Louisiana all over the world. Because many people that come for a fair or festival or a Mardi Gras celebration, some of them end up staying, but many of them come back because they get a friend for life. And they keep coming back and they tell their friends about how wonderful the people are here. And that's why those tourism numbers keep growing. Definitely.
And and then the other obviously major, or one of the other major races up in just, I guess, almost a week now, a little over a week, is for governor. And so do you expect to make an endorsement in the governor's race?
I have my own race.
Yeah.
So in the first primary, I won't. If I'm fortunate enough to win outright in the first primary, there is a good possibility that I will support somebody in the runoff that I feel will do the best job for Louisiana and support our office in tourism and all the other things. You know, I keep taking on new roles that you'll give me. I asked the legislature 2 years ago to move Keep Louisiana Beautiful under my office because we have a dirty state.
Right.
And we had our best cleanup ever this year, over 580 groups, first time ever in all 64 parishes. And I'm going to stay on this till we have a clean Louisiana. We're going to put the paradise back in sportsman's paradise. We got too much to offer not to have this state cleaned up. And we're well on our way, but we got a lot of work still to do. But I want to make sure the next governor supports all of our initiatives to clean up the state, to support tourism, our parks, museums, all the things I'm responsible for. Because past governors, not this last governor, but past governors have cut the budget of state parks. They were in deplorable shape when I took office. 7 of them were slated to close. We kept them open, and today, several are making a profit. When have you ever heard of a state agency making a profit? But we're doing that through private-public partnerships, and I see a day when we won't need any tax dollars to run our state parks. They will all generate millions of dollars for culture, recreation, tourism here in Louisiana.
Yeah, that'll definitely be good for our taxpayers. And speaking of exactly that, there's a perception that you're a strong Republican, but at the same time you're reasonable and not necessarily moderate even, just because I don't want to characterize, but that you're able to work with people of all political stripes. Do you think that's accurate? Have you worked well with the current governor?
Absolutely. When I got elected, I gave the governor my word. I would never talk bad about him in public, and I wouldn't run against him. And I reached across the table and said, Governor, let's work together for the greater good of Louisiana. And we disagree on things, but we both agree that we want to do all we can for Louisiana. And so it's allowed me to sit next to him in many of the meetings through many of the disasters and assist him wherever I can. And he's been very supportive of like moving Keep Louisiana Beautiful under my office and support my budget every year. I've been Lieutenant Governor. And you got to have that working relationship. Too many governors have been at odds with the Lieutenant Governor, and that's not good for Louisiana. I also believe that you've got to come together on some of these issues and not just go to the far right or the far left to politically grandstand. That does not get nothing accomplished. It may make those group of people think, well, he's standing up for me, but if it's not getting anything accomplished, So on all of these issues, we need to look to work together to get things accomplished for the greater good of the people you represent. And I think there's far too much political grandstanding.
Definitely. And one more political question is, obviously in a year we'll have our presidential election. And so do you know who you'll be voting for, either in the Republican primary or in the general?
Well, I personally don't think Donald Trump is electable. And I hope that the Republican Party rallies behind another candidate that is electable. Because I do think it's important to elect a good Republican president. I think the country right now cannot continue to give away the money we're giving away. And it seems like more and more of these programs are making people dependent on the government when we should be there supporting good, practical programs that put people to work, because the deficit is out of control. And at some point, this country, it's going to be unsustainable. And so because of those political philosophies in the Republican Party, I hope we elect a good Republican president. And then I believe there's a lot of good candidates running. But I don't think Donald Trump or Joe Biden would be good for the country at this point. I think we need new leadership. And there's too much baggage that Donald Trump carries with him to be the nominee and be electable. And that's my personal belief. I know a lot of people get mad at you when you say that, but I think we need to be realistic. We lost all of these congressional races, Republicans, because Donald Trump backed those candidates. Whether you agree or not, we lost the presidency with him last time. We lost the Congress, and the last time in 4 years before that, we lost the Senate. So we've had 3 losing races that have been in the Trump era. So I think it's time to move on to new leadership.
It's interesting. Yeah, I think there's been a lot of polls that show, 75, 80% of Americans want a new option between Trump and Biden. But I guess we'll see what happens. And so turning back to Louisiana and the people, obviously for fisheries are a huge part of Louisiana, our economy also part of what you do. And so you mentioned the diversion and the concern about the effects on oyster fishermen. But one of the other big issues is the current crisis in the shrimping industry. And so what are your thoughts on that? And what do you think we need to be doing for our shrimpers?
Well, first off, I hope our congressional delegation will introduce legislation to add a 10 cents a pound inspection fee on imported seafood. We inspect less than 5% of imported seafood. Some of that's rejected for bacteria, antibiotics. We quit using Chinese drywall because it made us sick, but we eating that seafood. So if we would inspect about 50%, maybe they clean up their act, but it would bring the price up to give our fishermen, our crawfish fishermen, the oyster, shrimp, a fighting chance. That's the first thing. But on a state level, I hope that the next legislative session will let me take over inspecting the people that are cheating, mislabeling stuff as Louisiana seafood when it's imported, because that's a disservice and that's illegal and they shouldn't be doing it. And yet we've caught them, but we haven't done them anything. So I think those fines should be stiff and that money should be given back to the fishermen. We also need to support ask before you eat. Demand Louisiana seafood when you go in a restaurant, in a store. And if more people would support the local fishermen, we could get that price up a little bit and get them making a decent living. Because we have been hit with these hurricanes, the oil spill, COVID, and now with these prices, I don't see, if we don't support that industry, it won't be around for the next generation. And that would be horrible. Because we've got the best seafood in the world.
Right, definitely. I mean, we can't imagine Louisiana without it.
And that's why I can't believe anybody's for this diversion. You say you're going to give the shrimp as refrigeration, so they go further out and catch shrimp. That's ludicrous. Shrimp grow in the basin. When they mature, they go offshore. You kill them there, there won't be none offshore. You'll have to give the fishermen fuel tanks to go to Mexico to catch shrimp. Why would you do something that can't build land above the waterline that you know is going to wipe out the seafood? The Marine Mammal Commission did a study by the St. Andrew Institute. If we build this diversion, dolphins will be extinct in 50 years. It will kill 50% in the first 5 years. The dolphin is a canary in a coal mine. You've heard that if the canary dies, get out, there's no oxygen. Well, you kill a dolphin, everything below it will die. And the politicians will say, well, they'll swim away. When you see them die with sores all over their body, they die a horrible death. They don't know what's killing them. They're territorial. They're not leaving their home. When we opened the spillway in 2019, we killed more dolphins than the BP oil spill. And it's not a freshwater diversion. It's a polluted river diversion. It will wipe out the seafood industry. It killed everything in Lake Pontchartrain for 2 years. And we don't think it's going to wipe out the seafood? Last year, we had the largest dead zone in the Gulf ever because of the toxic going out the river. Over 7,000 miles. Offshore, tidal movement's 15 feet every day. Mixes that water up. We're going to dump that polluted river in the Barataria Basin where tidal movement's less than 2 feet. And we don't think it's going to kill everything? They got them. A lot of people don't know this. At 11 o'clock on a Friday night, they got a waiver of the Marine Mammal Act. Never been done for a large project before. Instead of studying what this diversion is going to do to our seafood, they're going to monitor for 5 years after they spend $3 billion. Wouldn't you want to know before you spent that money the harm you're going to do? When I asked the CPRA head why, he said, well, if you did the study, we probably couldn't build it. Well, maybe we shouldn't. This is the biggest fraud ever pulled over Louisiana eyes. People are getting filthy rich over it while we're going to drown like rats at the mouth of the river. And that's unfortunate because we got enough money from BP to save our coast. God help us if we waste it. We'll never get this chance again.
Right. It's definitely, the coast is a top issue in this fisheries. And so one more or two more current events questions. What do you think about the crime in New Orleans? Is that affecting tourism? What should we be doing about it? Is the mayor leading as she should be?
No. I tried to make an agreement with her to take over the French Quarter and manage it like a state park. Put a park ranger on every corner, clean it up, put cameras in every street light on every all down the block. Put a bank of cameras up in the headquarters so in real time we can watch crime, watch corners to see stuff before it happens and be proactive. We didn't get that agreement done, much like they did in San Diego with the gas lamp district and cleaned it up. But let me tell you, we got to keep criminals in jail. They call them kids. If you're 16 or 60 with a gun and you shoot somebody, you're still dead. So until these kids are rehabilitated, they need to be locked up. You know, they're running commercials on TV about don't bring a gun in the quarter. You can have fun without a gun. The DA spending money on commercials, yet when 17 people were picked up with a gun, he took the guns and let them go home. They should have went to jail. Some of them were convicted felons. One had a machine gun. If they come in your house and you got a machine gun, you don't have a license, but you're going to prison. But they're letting the same people out. And police officers are growing frustrated and leaving. They're leaving because they're not supported by the judges and lawyers that keep getting these thugs out. And until we keep the real criminals behind bar, you'll never stop it. And listen, I'm fearful of Super Bowl next year. I don't know if we've got time to clean up the cracked streets, the deplorable condition of the quarter, the homelessness. And if we have this Super Bowl and we don't clean up the city and make it safe, it may be the straw that broke the camel's back for New Orleans. We may never recover. We're close to that now. When you're getting more people commenting that they're never coming back to the city because of the cleanliness, the robbery, the homelessness, the filth, that's a problem. And we get more letters, emails, and calls negative than positive. And when I first took office, that wasn't happening.
So clearly that's a big issue. And I do appreciate that. I remember there was a press article where you said that whenever you're traveling, you never speak bad about New Orleans or Louisiana, but internally, obviously, we need to get our house together.
Absolutely. If we don't talk about it, look, everybody sees it. But when you go on national news or you go out of state, you got to talk about all the good. But here, we better address it. We better address it quickly because it's almost at a breaking point where every day I'm waiting for one of the famous restaurants that is in the quarter to say, we had enough, we're leaving. When you got to hire extra police to keep people from walking in your restaurant and taking food off of tables, which has happened in the quarter, and when you've got shops that have been in business for 100 years closing, you better wake up. We've got some bars and restaurants, some bars that need to be closed down. They attract nothing but people that aren't doing nothing but looking for trouble. And until somebody has the guts to stand up and say that and do it, we're not going to clean it up.
And you mentioned the homelessness issue, and I saw that the city will now be cleaning the encampments on WWL. Is that something you support?
Absolutely. Look, we had in our package presented to the mayor, we had a private citizen put up $1.5 million to build a facility to move them with a tent for medical care and everything else, and try to get them help. But they can't stay on the streets of New Orleans. And they say they got a right. They do not have a right. It's unsanitary, it's unsafe, it's unhealthy, and because of that alone, they should be removed immediately. And if they don't want help, then they need to go somewhere else.
Right. Definitely. And then finally, in terms of current events, obviously, I heard you talking about this before we started the interview of the saltwater incursion. What are your thoughts on that? How can we fix that problem?
Well, I think, we're addressing it with the water barge and with the silt. I had it once when I was parish president. We built a little wall across we were able to keep it at bay. But think about this. When I was parish president, we tried to close Mardi Gras Pass. It blew out for the hurricane. The Corps of Engineers let it roll. Now it's 1,000 feet, 80 feet deep. Some people estimate 30% of the river is going through that. There's about 20 breaks in the levees in Plaquemines Parish. If we closed all them up immediately and put that flow down river, would that keep the saltwater at bay? I'd bet it would. Would it make it where it wouldn't be a problem at all? Probably not, but not a severe problem. So the Corps ought to be doing that immediately. But then they admit maybe they should have done it when we asked them years ago. And agencies don't like to admit when they make mistakes. But we're hopeful that they'll do the right thing and close off all of these breaches in the levee and put that flow back down the Mississippi River where it ought to go.
Definitely. Well, it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds, especially as a New Orleans resident. And so I understand that lieutenant governors aren't term limited. And so do you expect this to be your last reelection, or are you going to be lieutenant governor for life?
I have a love and passion for the state, and every day I give 110%. I look for new ways to help people. The thing I'm most proud of, you asked me earlier, we never tell anyone no that calls my office. Whether it's a driver's license problem, a permitting problem, I got a great staff, and we try to find them help. And if you love helping people, public service is a great way to do it. And I only know one way. Everybody says, man, you need to slow down. You don't need to be going to 20 events a week. I love my job. I love what I do. I love serving the people. And as long as I have that love and passion, I'm going to continue to do it, and as long as the people of Louisiana will have me. If I'm getting older, in 3 years, if I'm slowing down and don't feel I can do it, I'll give 110%, then I'll look for someone else to take the reins and hopefully pick up and continue the great work that we've all done in tourism around the state. But it's too early to make that decision. I hope they'll give me a chance next Saturday to serve 4 more years. We got a lot still to do. My favorite saying is, we've done so much, but we're just getting started. And I feel that way about Louisiana. We've got some great potential.
Definitely. And speaking of, so the election is October 14th, next Saturday. And so what's your closing pitch to voters?
Well, I tell people when good people don't vote, bad people get elected. And whether you vote for me or someone else, honor our veterans and the men and women have died for this country, gave their life to give us that right. A lot of people around the world don't have that right. Don't take it lightly, and get out and vote in every election.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Lieutenant Governor. It was really an honor to interview you.
Appreciate you.
And we appreciate you making the time and all you do for our culture and especially our French language. So.
Well, listen, I tell you, I'll say one last thing. When I first got elected, I went over to France on a tourism trip, but I invited all the French people over there that were over there to learn the French culture and come back and teach our kids. And when I interviewed those kids, I saw what they learned from living with French families and things they taught me. And I came back and said, we've got to expand this program. We've got to do more. So every year, I tell the Codefil and the French immersion programs, do not say no to anything. If I've got to take tourism money and move it to Codefil or to any of the immersion programs, those kids, what they learn there, open their doors to the world. So I want to see that program and all of our French immersion programs grow to include more students, both bringing teachers here to teach our kids, but also our kids going there. I think it's one of the greatest things Louisiana did It opens our doors to the world, and it makes us work better together with the French. And we had the French president come to the Cabildo with his wife, and I just think it's a great opportunity to grow those programs, and looking forward to growing them.
Definitely, and it's like you said earlier that the best pitch for Louisiana is always making Louisiana people travel around, and that's what the French allows all of us to do. We can go to French countries and explain why Louisiana is so great and get people to come here. So
Absolutely.
cool. Well, thank you so much again. Bien merci.
Appreciate
And
you.
good luck next Saturday.
Thank you.
See y'all soon.